are ready to bring you the season finale of X-Men 97.
Tolerance is Extinction, Part 3.
Really excited for this.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, especially these last few episodes. But I mean, this whole season again has just been killer.
Yeah.
And let's get right into it though, because this was a detailed one. Picking up right where we left off, basically.
Yeah.
We see a young Magnus and young Charles Xavier at a bar discussing like the existence of mutants and maybe hinting towards it before finally Charles is like uses his powers.
He's like,
yeah, I have mutant power, and he's like, okay, I can control minds, I can control metal, blah blah blah. Charles tells Magnus like, I've met other mutants.
Yeah.
Like Magnus hadn't at that point. But he had, and he's like, between the two of us, we could help teach, protect these mutants, you know what I mean? And Magnus kind of tells Charles here at this point, like, his experience kind of shows him that minds are harder to bend than metal.
Yeah.
And, so he's not really the ideologue.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
He's, he just, he has this wall built up to it based on like where he was born and like how and like what happened to him in his youth of being in the concentration camps. And
so
stuff.
Yeah, they're in like a war-torn area, and and they're at like some bar, and they're like helping people basically together. And as he finishes the statement about that, he hears a woman call out Eric.
Yeah.
And he looks out the window, and the storm kind of brews up real quick, followed like by a flood, like a biblical flood.
Yeah.
And he hears this voice again, and he identifies it as Rogue, right?
Yeah.
And this is kind of when us, the viewer, and I think, Charles knows that this is just like, they know that we know it's a memory now.
Yeah.
Magnus is definitely just going through it. This is like a bad trip to him,
Yeah.
He doesn't know what's happening right now. But he is slowly starting to realize that something's up, right?
Yeah.
And he's being manipulated by the professor. He starts
Yeah,
thinking,
that Charles is kind of controlling what's going on here. Like that they are in a shared like mind space. And Magneto even gets like starts being like, why are you in my mind, and kind of like fighting back a little bit on
he
him.
doesn't remember what led to this.
Yeah.
Magneto definitely doesn't remember like what led. He just knows that what's happening now isn't right, and he feels violated, blah blah blah. And Charles is like, dude,
my X-Men?
remember what you did? Not only as X-Men, you
Logan?
declared war against humanity. Like you had a giant asteroid floating above Earth, like ready to, and you weren't gonna turn the power. You're not gonna turn the power back on, so I had to take control of you. So now we're both kind of tied to each other, and if you get out of this, we both do. If you don't,
like, we're both gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, dude, between Logan, like you said, what he did to X-Men, and just the war he declared, like I said, because we'll see that coming up too. But, so Magneto kind of responds there when he does say Logan.
Yeah, and he's like,
I think that one hit him a little more. Like, that one, like, oof. Maybe I do remember now. Yeah. He meant to kill me. Yeah, that's when he starts kind of really remembering.
And then he leans in, but then he also leans into the differences of like the humans and the mutants, of being like, why do you keep defending our genetic like inferiors? Then we get a.
It's kind of like an eye for an eye is not gonna. It's gonna make the whole world blind, dude. We need to get our shit together, or like this. We end the cycle of violence.
Yeah.
It's really up to me and you, Magnus. Like Charles is telling him. And, he's kind of right in this moment. You can't, as much as, like, Charles Xavier grandstands, I think this is kind of showing the, like, sides of them that need to come together right now. And there needs to be some diplomatic side of Magneto that shows up soon, hopefully.
Yeah. Because, like...
He even says there...
He's like, we're trying to keep, Bastion and his cyborgs, like, from coming back. And Magnus is like, well, what happens to mutants... Or Charles asks, like, what happens to the mutants in the blackout as well? And Magneto's response is, evolution happens in the dark.
Yeah. So basically, the humans and mutants that are left there are screwed unless they adapt to this new life without power, which would lead billions dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Charles is just done. Like, you either save this.
You either do this and
Yeah.
reverse it, or I'll force you to do it.
Yeah.
And Magneto's like, I can leave both of our minds.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you
That's
know,
the point
like,
where it's like,
like
dude.
shattered.
Yeah, Charles up to this point was trying to do everything but take over Magneto's mind, right? Like, so like, if you don't work with me again, this is all gonna go downhill.
Right. This is all gonna go downhill, and we need to do this. Please,
Yeah.
like, have reason. Like,
But
please,
as
have
we've
reason.
seen before, Magneto's not a big reasonable guy, more revolutionary than reasonable. And
Right.
he refuses, and Charles just goes at him with his psychic powers, like floating out of his chair, even like just like hitting him with psychic blasts from his head. And then he forces Magneto basically to turn the power back on Earth.
Yeah.
And during this is when we get like cameo porn,
Yeah.
where we
Oh my
start
gosh,
with
it's
Silver
so good.
Samurai watching over Tokyo from
Yeah.
a skyscraper. Iron Man and Captain America are at the White House protecting President Kelly.
Mhm.
We get Daredevil fighting some hooligans in Hell's Kitchen. Doctor Strange using his magic because the lights are out before the power does finally return.
Yep.
He's doing surgeries and that, and like as that continues to roll, Bastion's giving this grandstanding speech, right? Like as we see Val Cooper
Yeah.
locked up, she's seeing the Prime Sentinels wake back up out of their sleep. Which the Prime Sentinels, if you don't remember, are the humans that were kind of enslaved by Bastion.
Right.
We see Jean Grey, kind of her hair
drowning like
in
floating down in the lake there.
Yeah, and off on the shore, we see Mr. Sinister and Bastion kind of standing over Cable, who's kneeling on the ground there on the sand. He looks defeated, you know. Cable looks like he's still under Mr. Sinister's control, but like not like directly. So he's like feeling his feelings, actually. You know what I mean? And Bastion continues this monologue, smashes his power dampening collar that they were supposed to use to stop him. They just like again look very defeated, and like those old Sentinels show up with the other captured X-Men in hand with like Beast, Morph, Storm, Forge.
Yep.
And Beast tries speaking up
and is like immediately just like
knocked out.
like just immediately hit.
Yeah.
Your creations are prisoners held hostage by ignorance and coerced through fear is like what Beast is saying. And all that's true.
Yeah. And he's so right.
Yeah, he's absolutely right.
Yeah, so then we knocks him out real quick. Bastion starts choking Storm, who she knows she's the next powerful one. So she tells him that Professor X tried, man.
Yeah.
Like this is the first opening to that thread. Like she met you. He went and met your mom as a kid. She denied him.
Mm-hmm.
So
and Bastion's like, yeah, well, even if that were true, I'd be hanging here with you guys. Like, fate has my back.
And this line is great, where she's like, he's kind of bashing on humans. She's like, none choose to be born, Bastion.
Yeah.
That's why we must never begrudge them being.
Yeah.
Which is a great sentiment to walk around having. And he kind of twists his head, does the dog move, puppy head. But he's like, you trying to appeal to my humanity, girl?
Yeah.
My humanity? That thing And so in this moment, he just like, you could tell he sees empathy as a weakness that he's trying to kill within himself, but he still has it. I mean, we've seen him hold his mother crying. We've seen some form of empathy in him, but he's really doesn't see it as a good thing. So he's like, I'm skipping the final phase of this.
Oh, absolutely.
Operation Zero Tolerance, and then like the hordes of Sentinels are flying over his
the
head.
Sentinel primes of all the people and stuff are in there, and oh man.
Back at the White House, we get the primes popping in, breaking in, going after kind of like holding Iron Man and Captain America off.
Yeah.
As he's like, I need to save humans from themselves, Bastion says.
Yeah.
And then in Wakanda,
with the Dora
we see
Milaje.
Black Panther and the Dora Milaje, and they're being attacked by some primes.
We get more Daredevil in Hell's Kitchen, of course.
He gets knocked into a window. But,
we get a new cameo.
A new cameo. Cloak and Dagger.
Okay, so I gotta say this. I gotta tell the story of when I first saw of when I first watched this. I'm watching it and I'm like, who are these people?
Right.
Who's this
really?
dude?
Oh, yeah.
Who's this dude that just poofs out of
Nice.
nowhere? And then like I'm looking and don't go.
Yeah.
Don't know throughout the rest of the episode. I watch it the second time as I'm taking notes and as I'm actually typing this story into our notes right here. I just pointed to my laptop screen here for Colin to be like, no, really, everything I'm talking about is here.
Oh yeah.
So the
great.
next time,
Great character.
next time we see Cloak poof out with Dagger there, and I see her holding the dagger, and I'm like, oh, she's so. I was like, oh, it's Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah,
I'm an idiot.
It's great. It's a great feeling though when you don't know and then you figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one wasn't the hard one. The next one was the rough one for me after Omega Red. I had to look up. Who the hell is that?
Yeah,
so it's the Crimson Dynamo, who is the like Iron Man stand-in, and Dark Star.
Yep.
And they're protecting the Russian president.
Yep.
And then we get Psylocke, who's standing in front of Cypher, the teenage black girl behind her, like college age maybe. And then some of the members of the Canadian team Alpha Flight. Yeah. You get North Star, who's the first like openly gay character in Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
We get his sister Aurora on the other side, like all the way on the other side.
Yeah.
And then in between them is Puck, the little guy there.
Yeah.
And so we just again, it's opening up this season 2 as to like all these characters exist. You know what I mean in this world. Don't be surprised if any one of them pop up. But anyway, so we get Bastion still talking, and this is when he turns his attention to Cable.
Yeah.
Who Mr. Sinister is forced to tell him how many times he's tried to stop Bastion's plans. And like through tears and grief again, like even though he's being controlled, he's feeling all this, right?
Yeah.
And he tells him 200 times before he hits him with the dead mother joke. He hits him like taunting Bastion about his dead mother.
Yeah.
Because, he killed his mom. Yeah.
Madeline, never Phoenix, just dead.
Yeah.
And we get more Sentinels. We get more of the Sentinel Prime showing up then right behind Cable and stuff.
And like I said, it clearly hit a sore spot. Bastion orders his Primes to kill Cable.
And then Sinister's like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
That's my toy. You promised that was my toy.
This pup was supposed to be mine.
Yeah, exactly. And Bastion kind of just ignores him and just says they need to make an example of Cable because he'll never stop trying to do this over and over again. But before he has a chance to kill Cable, a huge psychic blast comes and kind of like forces the power dampening collar together as the Phoenix rises from the depths of the water.
Dude,
and
this
Storm,
is so
seeing Storm
cool.
just like also being like the audience in this was she's just laughing and like amazed.
She's laughing, she's amazed, and she's just like, "Oh, you just fucked up."
You said the quote before. She says, "Beast was right."
Yeah,
and she calls it out too, and Hank was right basically about Beast either way. She disables some of the Primes basically right away. She grabs Bastion, puts the collar on him.
Yeah.
Now severing the connection to the enslaved humans completely.
Yeah.
Not only severing it, but taking the technovirus out of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a good moment here. It was like a big whew. So
they can if they still have their hate for mutants, they can still have their hate for mutants, but they can be
at least
they're
alive. Yeah.
They're their own living people again, and not being puppeted by Bastion. So
and as they're reverting to their human forms, the older models like Bastion was using also begin to power down, loosen their grip, freeing the X-Men that were there.
Yep.
Kind of giving them an upper hand here for a moment. Mr. Sinister tries to get Cable to fight for him, but Phoenix pulls him close.
Yeah.
Takes all the mutant DNA out of him. It's like, you don't deserve this, dude.
And burns away the unnecessary.
Yeah. And basically stole all the genetics from mutants that he's either killed or experimented on in the past to keep himself enhanced, living longer, all this stuff. And he's just like a shriveled raisin.
Yeah.
Looking decades older.
It's so awesome.
And Morph he's like, show me my face.
looks the same to me.
Yeah, more just changes into him. It's,
I did love when all the Sentinels are falling, man. I love seeing all the teams again, like the Cloak and Dagger Daredevil team together, which was like really neat to see them as a team, because like we're so used for like the street level like Daredevil stuff. It's been so long now. Daredevil, Defenders, Jessica Jones,
right.
you know, Luke Cage,
Cloak and Dagger,
Iron Man.
yeah,
but like having Cloak and Dagger there. Switching it up, like just switching it up a little bit.
I think they showed up, if I'm not mistaken, in the Spider-Man series too.
I believe so.
Yeah. So like they're definitely that's where Daredevil showed up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Anyway, so we get that scene of Sinister kind of shrinking off and running away, and Jean Grey kind of like she was able to take control of the Phoenix Force for a moment, or like it came back. It was dormant, you know. And in the moment, she was able to use it just to help her protect her son. Mm-hmm. So that power kind of fades away after a minute, and then Cable has to catch her even out of the sky.
Yeah.
They embrace in this moment as mother and son finally. Like this is like a recognition. Like, you know, you are my son, you are my mother, regardless of who gave birth to you. Like, I mean, it would be the same thing with an adopted mother, but this is even a step beyond that, considering the DNA thing.
Considering the cloning of the mother.
Exactly.
And
so,
all of that.
Bastion uses some kind of kinetic energy to
psychic energy or whatever, blast.
Like it's like a last ditch effort type thing.
Yeah.
Knocks them out long enough.
He's like, what did you do to me?
To knock the hell out of Cable.
And Cable gets thrown up against like a big old rock. And then we you know what?
Unceremoniously.
We've seen it once before in the MCU, man. Like you know, we've seen Buck get there. Well, I mean, Winter Soldier get his arm ripped off.
Yeah.
We see that happen to Cable here, and it is messed up.
Yeah.
And it is even more messed up that then Bastion takes Cable's arm and morphs it into wings and a whole new armor and like. Becomes like the Angel of Death, basically. Like a very Angel of Death kind of looking from
you've already seen. I mean, you've seen literally Archangel as that in the episode. You've even seen him in this series with the metal. Just think that, but like even more advanced. But like
he's got the dual set of wings.
So if you saw Archangel in the past episode, he'll actually show back up later in this episode. We'll talk about it. But anyway, so. He's basically like, I'm done with humanity, I'm done with all of this, like, I'm going to just straight hurl Asteroid M at the Earth, and whatever happens, happens.
Giving everybody a quick extinction.
Extinction level event, straight up.
Yeah.
And, Cable's just watching in horror as he takes off into the sky. Yeah. This is when we see now Rogue buckling in Magneto, she'd already buckled in Charles, who are both knocked out into the Blackbird.
Yep.
As the remaining X-Men kind of look over Logan.
Like, Rogue's even asking, like, why aren't they waking up? The rest of the team is laying Logan down on the, like, med bay back there. And then we cut back inside their minds and everything. And Charles and Magneto, man, they're still going at it. Charles is, still calling him Magnus. And Magneto's like, who is Magnus?
Yeah, he starts losing it again. He starts forgetting who he is, which is like... There's a lot of metaphors in this episode with the water and stuff, and post-traumatic stress disorder and memory and stuff like that. And he even forgets, like, you'll see, like, he forgot what his parents looked like. Because any moment that's tied to trauma is going to be hard to remember.
And like this is also the side effect of Charles taking over and like reversing it.
He's literally dying,
like forcing Magneto.
He's losing.
To do all that.
He's being consumed, as Charles calls it. But Charles again is like, I can guide us to safety, but
we can't let the elements consume us. Like, let's not do that.
And Jean, across like from the pond where he just took off from, she connects with Scott.
Yeah,
who's up on the ship, warning him that Bastion's coming.
Yep.
And the professor also kind of 3 ways in, and is like, yeah, Magneto, if we don't save him, we're both gonna be gone. So I need to fix that. We can't come back yet.
Yeah.
And Cyclops is like, dude, we need you. but before he can come, Bastion's already basically on his way.
Yeah.
And as the team watches Bastion's approach out the window or whatever, Roberto tells Jubilee he's like sorry for what he did. And he even hints that he loves her. He doesn't get to it exactly because Rogue cuts him off with hey, Romeo!
Well, no, he even says, we both know how this, he says, like, we both know how this will turn out for me. I just learned how to use my powers, yesterday.
He's gonna die.
You know.
Yeah,
is what he says.
Such a Han Solo.
And then we get the, beautiful, shocked face from Jubilee in, acknowledgement of understanding. But I love Rogue being easy, Romeo.
Yeah.
The odds are bad, but the cards are always in the X-Men's favor.
Yeah.
Again, keeping that...
Don't try to kill yourself.
Right? There's that, but also keeping that idea of that gambling luck that Remy always kept alive.
This is her moment.
It's
definitely the Gambit's. She's bringing the references here, and this isn't the last one she'll make. And so Bastion's flying into the gravity core, and that's what Rogue's like. Oh, I know what he's gonna do. If I was to do it, I'd go after the gravity core.
Mm-hmm.
He's about to do it. Rogue cuts him off and hits him with his name was Gambit. Remember it before slamming him. And this is great because this really shows off Rogue's power levels.
Yes.
Really shows off how strong she actually is, and she's able to go toe to toe with him for a minute, before he uses his new powers that he got from the techno-organic virus that was in the metal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's figuring out new powers in this moment, and he's able to choke her out for a minute before Sunspot comes up.
Yeah. Well, because they take this fight from outside of Asteroid M and stuff, and
so the two that can breathe in space.
Yeah.
Go to fight him.
Yeah, Rogue outside. And Sunspot take it outside, and then they start fighting on basically the moon, more or less. Yeah. And then they're on the moon. There seems to be this carved out, what I thought to appear to be kind of like Apocalypse, kind of like some ancient civilization up there or whatever. And then that's where we get Bastion choking out
it could be
Rogue.
King, could be
it could be King or anyone, but for whatever reason I thought it looked like Apocalypse's face.
Yep.
But beside the point,
sure.
that's where we get Sunspot, shooting Bastion, and then they we get a big fireball. Sky's on fire, man, and we cut to the Earth and UN, and everybody's like, sky's on fire!
Exactly. And we're at the White House again, and Black Panther's on the comms, basically telling President Kelly to stand down, dude. We don't know enough about Magneto and what he's capable of, and what's going to happen if we attack.
Yeah.
So Captain America's kind of like, yeah, man. I think we should listen to T'Chaka, which is interesting. So it's not T'Challa yet, right? So there is T'Challa probably out there, but he's probably a boy in this moment, which hopefully we see later in episodes in season 2, 3, and beyond.
Yeah.
And he basically, President Kelly used this moment to ignore them and just open up the file
on the Magneto protocol and start looking through what that all means.
Yeah. So
back
in
the mind
of Magnus.
Yeah.
Charles is reminding him who he is, and as they're surrounded by this water,
so dark and cold.
Charles mentions Rogue, and that kind of snaps him out of it for a moment, But this is the moment when he tries to remember his parents, he can't, and that's such a sad thing that happens from trauma scarring, and it's tied into all this stuff that's happening right now. His loss of control. He doesn't feel like he can ever do the right thing type deal, And as he begins to panic, Charles is like, chill, man.
Yeah.
I got this. I'm telling you, just ride with the tide. If the water takes you, I'll be there with you the whole time, And as if to tell him, we can't fight against the inevitable anymore. We have to fight together.
Right. And, but, Magneto, through all this of Charles being I'll help you stay afloat, just like Rogue and stuff. He's like, but you left. She leaves, and you hurt me. And Charles is like, well, yeah, but bro, you hurt me too, man.
Yeah.
Countless times. But at the end, we've never abandoned each other. We've never abandoned each other. And another good point of what Xavier's saying here is the only people who can break our hearts or hurt our hearts are the ones we keep in our hearts.
The ones we love are
And,
the only ones that matter at the end of the day. And you clearly have a boat full of people you care about, right? There's a, you know, the metaphorical boat that was flying around with Rogue and other characters on Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver is two of his daughters, and the other daughter, I forget her name right now.
Polaris?
Polaris, yeah.
Polaris.
She was on the boat because she's another one of his kids.
I just love charlatan as a word.
It's a great word. It's always useful.
I love that Magneto calls him that. You know, like you pretended. You know, we are not family. You know, like don't presume us to be family. You know, and then this what brings him back to like talking about his family and his face and their faces and how he can't see them and how he just kind of hears the boots thumping from like being a child, and then we get him speaking like I think maybe father, or speaking some German there.
He's reverting back to childhood, basically,
and
which is probably not a good sign in Charles' mind.
No,
but he's also maybe letting go, right? Maybe he's finally letting go and allowing these thoughts to rush over him because he's been pushing these memories out, right?
Yeah.
And the water represents these memories flowing back in, and he's allowing
flooding back in. Yeah.
He's allowing all this to happen finally.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so like a Sentinel shows up. They're fighting again outside with Rogue and Sunspot. Bastion finally takes him out and uses this
like a tractor beam type thing to like almost bring him in and then shoot that same energy at him. And
again, I think he's realizing his new powers.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
he's finding out all kinds of crazy things.
So he's got he can do. So he uses that moment to get away, slink out, and run to the asteroid. And that when he gets to the asteroid this time, he's met by Nightcrawler, who bamfs on his back, and then Cyclops and Jubilee were there to throw some blasts and fireworks at him. Who he'll say later, you know.
Yeah.
Who he takes some pot. She takes some. After he knocks out Cyclops.
Yeah.
He takes some pot shots at Jubilee.
Yeah.
And she does pretty good against him.
She really does.
Yeah.
And like I love Bastion's line when he's fighting Jubilee. He's like, "What are you gonna do? Slay me with the 4th of July?"
Exactly.
Like,
I never heard that.
Like, I died a little bit because that was so funny.
Because that's what everyone always thought.
Right. That's the most common,
so she's even
jab at her or whatever.
It's a call out to the fans who say that type of stuff. But yeah, she puts up a pretty good fight. But before that, even we get the blast of kinetic energy coming from their eyes, and Cyclops does knock him back for a second, but then he knocks Cyclops out, and Jubilee and him have their fight. And right before things are about to go down, a Sentinel shows up.
Yeah. And Bastion's like, my boy's here!
Yeah, but turns out Beast is in the cockpit.
Yep.
And he makes a Trojan War quip like usual,
he's
just being nerdy.
He's like, Greeks, like horses and irony.
Yeah, exactly. So you see Beast morph as Sauron. Jean and Storm, who tells Scott in this moment that Nathan's okay, he's being taken care of by Forge.
Yeah, he's taking care of him.
With the whole team together again, ready to fight, Bastion begins powering up and lifting the Sentinel off.
Yeah, it's pushing equally against the Sentinel, which is wild. Here.
Yeah, exactly. His strength's crazy right now, and just as the action's about to begin, and Cyclops' beams are kind of powering up. We
got the build up of the music here and stuff, and
but he turns his beams off and tells the team to stand down. Mm-hmm. He chooses to go, the Professor X route. Well, he chooses diplomacy,
and he also says, "We're going to do what we have been telling people for years to do.
We've been telling humans to do this.
Stop.
If we can't
fighting, embrace the future."
Yeah, who's literally standing in front of him.
And I love it is Cyclops, and right next to him is Storm, and they look at each other, and Storm's like, "You're right. This is the play. Let's go."
Right.
And
because think about it, evolutionary, wouldn't there be maybe now a creature that could stand against mutants, right? If mutants are more powerful than humans, now there's a creature that could at least stand up for itself against mutants, maybe But yeah, so it's let's take the future by the balls, basically.
Yeah.
Let's not pull a human. Let's be diplomat and let's talk to him. And as he begins getting through to Bastion,
they're like, "Your mother lied. Professor went to go visit you," and it's if she did that, it was to protect me.
Yeah.
You know,
he won't take it in at first, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I love Scott though here, like that. This particularly coming from Scott, with Cable being there, or well, not being there, but like
his own issues with his parents too. Yeah,
being like, parents mess up, make mistakes. I know how it feels to have the things you trusted in the future you were planning, building, come crashing down.
Right, he's been dealing with that all season.
Right. Yeah. Refuse to let go, even, to what it should have been and stuff. You're not alone, man.
Right.
You're not
We're
alone.
here, we chose family. You can in this moment choose family. And he starts getting through to him, but rockets are coming.
Yep.
And they're coming fast, and before they blast into the gravity core, Cyclops even says, Magneto Protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, the Magneto Protocol, basically. So he probably had something to do with coming up with those plans.
Probably.
With the way he said that.
Well, at least knew that the United States and the UN and stuff had the Magneto protocols and stuff there.
He's had a connection with President Kelly.
Right.
I don't see why he wouldn't be involved in a situation like that. So yeah, he definitely knew about it. And he's like, uh-oh. And Jean creates a force field around the X-Men.
The team, the team basically.
But Bastion's off to the side.
Scott still extending an arm, though, being like, come on,
man, like, come to your family.
And he's like,
we got you. Yeah, at first he's like, no, I'm not doing that. But
he floats up towards, like, the gravity core and stuff, and then it explodes.
Exactly.
Everybody's looking on. The UN asteroid on begins to fall. Jubilee is sucked out through one of the explosions. Sunspot goes to go save her. My whole question is that she's outside in space. I get that Sunspot can breathe in space. How is Jubilee?
She doesn't.
How is she out there in space when that asteroid is falling down?
Right. Maybe they were close enough to the atmosphere, but I don't know.
I don't know. That's fair. That's fair. Maybe it was in a lower part. I don't know.
Low level psychic, who cares?
Doesn't matter.
But yeah, anyway, Sunspot catches her and brings her quickly back down to Earth, basically. Scott tries to risk himself in this moment. They're walking down the corridor, and Beast is like, no, I got an idea, And that was another moment where Rogue's like, dude, stop. Like, we're a team. We're going to do this together. Everyone's trying to sacrifice themselves. Like, stop it. Like, we're going to get through this together.
I don't want to lose anybody else. And it's like, it's great coming. It's still great coming from Rogue, because
it's fair.
As much as she walked away to go with Magneto, it was not out of lack of love or wanting to see any of them die.
Right.
She felt at that point, going with Magneto, he was right, and the best way to then now live was with him. She, just like the X-Men, still have no ill will towards Rogue in any way. Especially Purdy's still like my sister.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I'm not making fun of them for that or anything either. Like,
they've
it's
been
beautiful
through this
and it's
before.
awesome.
Each one of the members have been turned against the team at one point. You know what I mean? Manipulated.
Up and stuff.
But anyway, so back on Earth, we get Storm contacting Forge, who's with Val Cooper, standing outside of this diner.
Yep.
And he tells him the plan, and she's like, "Don't do that," but they cut off. And Cable's inside the diner, sitting in a booth, when Jean uses this as a moment to astral project to Cable with Scott. And they appear to tell Nathan basically how much they love him, how much they love spending this time with him, and he kind of is angry at first, but she puts her hand on Jean puts her hand on his, and his anger comes down, but it's I'm just he was always annoyed with the stories he heard of them, because he should have been with them, right?
Yeah, he should have been a part of it.
More time, which is sad moment.
I do love, though, that, because I made a big point of this when we talked about it, I think in episode 4 or 5, whenever it happened in the season, when they do send baby Nathan away. No, that's episode 4, right? Mm-hmm. So when they do send baby Nathan away, I was like, that's the wrong move, Scott, for not saying goodbye. I stood my ground. I was like,
Right.
that's the wrong move. And I love that Scott admitted that it was the wrong move here of not saying goodbye. Despite how he felt of not wanting to do it, you still should have said bye to your kid, man.
Yeah.
And
I was, to be fair, I was never arguing that it was a good move. I was just saying I understood his point of view, which is different.
No. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I'm not saying
which I still do.
That.
I'm glad it led to this moment of him realizing that he did the right thing at the end of the day, sending him off into the future, but he didn't want to do that. So he was disagreeing with the future thing, so he wasn't going to be a part of any of it, right? So blah blah blah. Anyway, it was a great full circle moment though, and it was so cool to see that Nathan's finally accepting his parents here.
Yeah,
and Scott's eye beams are being depleted basically by Gene, and he's able to look Cable in the eyes
and see the same
eyes. Say goodbye.
Yeah,
and they begin. Once they say goodbye, they begin to enact their plan.
I love it.
Here we go again though with the cameos. We get back in New York. We see Peter Parker and Mary Jane, which I've confirmed by the showrunner at the time. That was that is the real Mary Jane. That's not because they ended the animated series on a weird note. But yes, it is the real Mary Jane, and it's back. And it might even be Flash Thompson who shows up there at the end.
That is that in-universe Flash. That's how he looks. That's so we get that.
And even
Peter Parker.
So they're watching on the storefront, basically a TV through the storefront, which is a classic movie TV thing,
especially in the 90s.
Yeah,
though.
Exactly.
I also love the radio that we see with the two guys in the car. Radio shows 1996.06.
That they were off, but they get so there's rioting, the looting going on. There's everything going on. It's all seeming pretty bleak in this moment as they announce that the meteor isn't going to stop coming towards Earth, and it's pretty much the end. Yeah. And
the world as we know it, baby.
We cut to Morph watching over Logan in a really sweet moment. Logan calls out to Jean, and Morph turns into Jean. She can't be here, but I can. I'm here, and I can do this for you. And he says in her voice, I love you, Logan. Stay with me, which is always a good thing for somebody going through something to hear, and so they can power through it. So they have something to look forward to on the other side.
I love it. Beast is also trying his best to control everything up there while all the systems and the failures are going on.
Yep. Nightcrawler's saying a quick Hail Mary.
He's literally praying. Especially because Charles and Magneto haven't split up yet, haven't split their minds yet. But we get back into the mines there, and Charles is like, you were a boy when you lost your family. That is why you cannot see their face.
Yeah.
He's like, but I grew up trying to see eyes or smile, looking at strange faces to see who I would grow up to be. And, Charles is like, there's power. Seeing yourself in another, in resemblance. Diversity matters.
Yeah.
that matters.
Magneto's point was basically I didn't have anyone to look up to growing up to model myself after, a father especially and a mother to model himself after. So he kind of had to pick and choose from different from people. And Charles says, yeah, good. That was great. That was a good way to learn. Diversity does matter, so
representation matters.
You're learning from just more than one source, and in this moment, you can choose who you want to be.
Right, and that's the beauty of what Charles is also saying about his X-Men. We actually don't resemble each other, but we're still a family. We still
our dream created this family.
Family, yes. Yeah. And then Magneto finally remembers Charles.
Yep.
I remember who you are. You are Professor Charles Xavier, and you are Eric Magnus Lentry.
Yeah.
The man you wish to glimpse as a child, also chose another name. Remember what he was meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, that's where we get the take back of Magneto. He's like,
he awakens.
Magneto lives!
Yeah, exactly. It was a classic line from the comics, from the Claremont era. And, yeah, Magneto's able to stop the meteor finally.
Yeah.
Falling out of the sky. He lifts it into space all the way, but when you think everything's all right, some weird explosion happens, and the asteroid and everyone on it seemingly disappears.
There's a poof of green and purple orbs that we see, bubbles, and then they're gone. We get a Jubilee and Forge look on with absolutely no signal of anything, like no signal on Forge's little device that was tracking them, and then we get a black screen 6 months after E-Day, they call it.
The newscast announces it's 6 months after we're outside of the X Mansion that's still destroyed. No one's even done a thing on it. We get Forge, who's holed up in the basement, basically, in Beast's lab. And there's that board in the background from the Days of Future Past. Like, you know what I mean? And it's got all these different faces of X-Men who are... It's detailing where each member is, right?
Yep.
So we get the team that was on the asteroid, Beast, Cyclops, Logan, Jean, Morph, Magneto, Nightcrawler, and Professor X, Rogue, and Storm. They're all marked missing, presumed dead.
Yep.
Also marked missing, presumed dead is Madeline Pryor and Archangel, which we talked about before. Archangel showing back up.
Yep.
Some are marked as off-world, which includes Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Another category has Cable, Jubilee, and Roberto, and they're marked as AWOL, which is, so finally, all the faces of the living X-Men shown include Colossus, Emma Frost, Shadowcat, Exodus, Havoc, Iceman, Magic, and Dust. So it's given a hint to next season, like who Forge is going to have to work with in order to...
Or find or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Who he's looking for to rebuild this team when he's interrupted by Bishop, who's like, you're already getting over your old teammates? Like, you're moving on already? And Forge is like, I don't know who you are thinking we're friends.
And he's like, we're not friends yet.
Yeah. Bishop's like, Luke Bishop, nice to meet you. We're going to be friends, though, don't worry.
Yeah.
Like, we're definitely friends in the future. And he's basically hints to Forge, like, dude, we need to keep looking for him. It's just you weren't looking in the right spots.
Yeah.
It's not where they are, it's when they are.
Yeah, it's less where, more when. And Forge is like, what are you talking about? Something or someone pulled them through time.
Right. Which, let's be honest, let's talk about it before we even move on. We get, in the explosion, Bastion was covered in the techno-organic material from Cable's arm, which had his time-traveling device in it. So Cable now cannot travel through time, and maybe it's going to be a hard time taking care of his techno-organic virus and all that, or if he even has it anymore, I don't even know.
Right.
But so he's AWOL, so we don't even know what's going on with him. But that blast was most likely Bastion either exploding and that giving off that energy, or giving again one last ditch effort to kind of stay alive and just be in a different time or era. But anyway, so yeah, we see that, and then they cut to Rogue, who is waking up in an Egyptian desert, 3000 BC. Yeah. She sees some things, like attacking a group of people, and decides to help real quick. Like,
they're in, like,
as much as she's looking for everyone, she's also
like Anubis and Ra masks and stuff. Like ancient,
But they seem like pretty strong. Like there seems like there's definitely some kind
warriors
of powerful.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like they're not.
And we'll see why I say that in a minute too, because they're beating up. Yeah. But Nightcrawler's there. You see, he comes and helps out too. And he gives the quick line of, we're not in Kansas anymore, while they're looking over the city, the city to see where they're at, and they cut to a different place, which is the future. It's 3960 AD, so way into the future, where we cut to the summers, basically. Yeah. And it's Scott looking for anyone. And, and then finally Jean comes up, and they're being surrounded by a group. Back with Rogue and Nightcrawler, we see a man being attacked who's a pretty big guy.
Well, first we see Rogue and Nightcrawler, and then we also see Beast carrying Charles.
No, wait. We see a man being attacked, and then before they could help, Magneto steps in to stop the attackers, followed by... Yeah, so he stops these attackers going after Beast or going after this guy that's pretty big on his own. It seems like, but
he's got like a little thing over his mouth, like covering his mask thing.
So that's when we get Beast carrying Professor X, and he Professor X uses this to look into the man's mind basically, and just to see where they're at. And Jean introduces herself and Scott to a hooded woman near the group, who calls herself Mother Ascani, who's running the Ascani clan. And that's when we see young Nathan appear.
Yep.
And they're
he's
shocked.
like, there's, I've got a sense there's no need to be afraid.
Yeah.
And Jean and Scott meet like a young adolescent teenage, basically Nathan here.
They're still in a post-apocalyptic world, clearly.
Yeah.
Right? And Ascani, I'm pretty sure, is also related to the Summers. I'm pretty sure she might be either a grandchild or a direct descendant of Jean and Scott. But anyway, we get that, basically, we get a moment of like, oh, Nathan will maybe be able to grow up with his parents a little bit here.
Yeah.
And have some adventures, put it that way.
Yep.
So we get a Magneto approaching that man who they saved and asks him his name, which he says En Sabah Nur, which we know along with the markings on his face as he pulls his mask down.
Yep.
He's got the blue lips. It's
Apocalypse.
It's Apocalypse, right? And around it, over that hill, there is a giant like dome around like the city, covering part of the nearby city. Which, again, there's something going on there.
Beast is like, oh dear.
Yeah, like what's going on? Yeah.
And then we
seems off already.
We get a to be continued.
Yeah, and then cut to the credits.
Then we get a mid-credit scene.
Of course, it's Marvel.
Yep, absolutely.
We cut to Genosha, where
present day.
Yeah, we see a big blue hand picking up a burnt card that clearly was Gambit's, and he says, "So much pain, my children, so much death." Which is hinting at something I've been hoping for. Gambit becoming Apocalypse.
One of the four horsemen.
Especially after we saw that the Professor X see that vision of him earlier in the season. I would really... and he's basically using this as a moment to be like his reason to come back and be daddy. Yeah. Like, see, you guys all needed me all along.
Yeah.
But he's the worst. He's basically believes in strongest of the fittest.
Yeah.
Basically, like old social Darwinism. Basically, like he believes that mutants should only survive if they are strong enough, and that humans shouldn't even be around anymore.
Yeah.
And he wants to rule over a society that's the strongest mutants, the strongest of the strong. And you know what that's going to lead to. Usually galactic empires. We get that cut, and it was a great season. It was fun. But again, we got a lot of hanging threads. We got a lot of threads cut, and we got a lot of threads to move on with, and it's going to be fun going into season 2, knowing that there's also a season 3, 4 planned now too, and they're pretty much done with season 2. Yeah,
the voice actress for Rogue said she has completed her dialogue work thus far, so I can only...
The animation's the hardest part, so
it'll take the longest. But
it'll be probably next year around the time that this came out, like on time. You know what I mean? There won't be if you watch Invincible, any of that type of stuff where it's like 2 years. Between and with no end in sight. Like this, they've planned this. Luckily it was a hit, so they've been able to at least be like, we're going on more. They fired the showrunner who wrote the next season and a little bits of the third season apparently. But I don't want to get into politics, all that stuff. But he's given us some good stuff so far to go on. And as quiet as he was at the beginning, he also has been pretty active in talking about each episode when it comes out.
I would say from like episodes like 6, 7 on, he's been a little bit more willing to talk about things. Than like it, and
they say creative differences.
Well, and like he definitely didn't want to talk about anything at the beginning because everybody just wanted to know why he got fired.
Yeah, exactly.
So like let all of that cool down. Let the show be the show, the hit that it is, and then talk about the really like this whole season has been great television. But like,
I mean, if it's nothing like criminal, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about it as long as it's again nothing like criminal or creepy or something. But yeah, he's given us some good TV so far, and hopefully they pick someone that cares about the product as much as he does.
Yeah. because X-Men 97 was great. Can't wait for season 2. This was excellent, man. This was great. This was so exciting to come back to play with these characters again and have these characters back in our lives. It was also equally awesome on how they also rewrote some of these characters, not like top to bottom,
No,
but just
right.
like gave them better things to do. Like they really made. We're so used to the X-Men movies of like Wolverine being the standpoint, and like I love Wolverine. He's by far my favorite X-Men in the entire X-Men
I remember
universe.
fighting my brother over
Wolverine.
Red Ranger and Wolverine.
But
until the White Ranger came around.
But I loved that they let Logan be hurt and like still recover throughout this episode and stuff.
He was off the game.
Like he was off the grid in like in every single way. Like we did get that nice little spot too of like Scott of like doing like telling Logan do what you do best, like don't let her down, heal.
Yep.
You know, we also got that at the beginning too. So we had 3 different
Logan's
things, right?
going to heal, but it
was good to not have him back in the fight or something.
Also, did we see where Logan and Storm went?
Yeah.
Where are they?
Like we don't know where they are.
Oh yeah, exactly. We do not know where those.
Because they're still on asteroid M/the Blackbird.
Yeah,
or
so
something.
they got put somewhere.
Right.
Morph too, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Morph, Storm, who might have a love interest.
Yeah.
Some other way with Logan, you know.
Exactly.
Logan's old enough to know what he likes to, so maybe he's willing.
But yeah, man, this was great.
Yeah, it was so cool, man. I had to watch this episode maybe 3-4 times.
It was so good.
It was so great. A lot of stuff happened, a lot of cameos. We even missed one. There was a point where Morph turns into Mr. Fantastic.
In the fight. Yeah. That's
anyway.
in one of the. Oh, that's actually when Jubilee gets launched out into the opening hole because Morph is right there. He turns into Mr. Fantastic and is like, all the way out there.
Which is again like the animated version of them from the '60s, like showing up. So like all these animated series characters are now in the '97 universe or whatever you want to call
are all
it.
in canon and stuff.
So
and
it's
great.
really cool because why would they not bring back the animated series of Spider-Man? Why would they not make a Daredevil series now, like playing off that?
Or why not like have
an Avengers
even
meetup.
if Daredevil doesn't get his own thing, do a Defenders series where we get Cloak and Dagger and stuff in there as well, and then and keep doing what we've done of like even in that original Spider-Man and X-Men like run. Those characters had 2 episodes in each one of those series where they cross over,
right?
And it's great.
Yeah, crossover episodes would be great, but I would love for these characters to shine in their own series because this is an X-Men show.
Oh yeah,
and I want it to stay that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If there's some kind of showdown, eventually, fine. But like, I would love for them to cameo more. Don't get me wrong, and there to be crossover episodes. But I want to see these characters more. And I want to follow up on especially Spider-Man's story. Yeah. I'll say that.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to see a Spider-Man story. That'd be awesome. But yeah, with that, we're going to wrap this up. I am Jimmy with the Triple C Collective.
I'm Colin.
We want to thank you all for joining us. Please like and subscribe to our video and to our channel. And as always...